So we've talked about resting, reconnecting, revising, pausing. This one is my favorite. One of the most important aspects of Sabbath simplicity is playing. Playing. I remember when John Ortberg was my pastor, he gave this great message, and he said, you know, God is the most joyful being in the universe. I think he was quoting Dallas Willard, which is a lot of times what he did. But God is the most joyful being in the universe. Relentlessly pursue joy. I thought, wait, I get to pursue joy? This is great. This is good. And this is a huge part of Sabbath simplicity, I think. Just want to read you something. But, you know, in Matthew 11:28, you're familiar with this verse. I think it was on our little favors. Jesus says, "Come to me, you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." The Message translation of that passage, Eugene Peterson's The Message, you've heard of this? He renders it this way. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. I love this part. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. The unforced rhythms of grace. Jesus invites us to dance through life, not just rush past it, and to move in balance, gracefully. You know, that whole idea of pausing. Even a sprinter has a rhythm, a balance. There's a run and a pausing. It's a rhythm. And that's the rhythm that Jesus invites us to in Sabbath. Mark Buchanan says this, play is subversive, really. It subverts business as usual. It subverts necessity. It subverts utility. It subverts all the chronos-driven, taskmaster-supervised, legalism-steeped activities that mark out most of our lives, that make us oh so useful, but bland and sullen in our usefulness. Sabbath is for play. The Greeks had two words for time. One was chronos. We get the word chronological from that root. And one is kairos. Chronos is clock time. It's a measurable time. It was named for the Greek god Kronos. Do you know what he did? He swallowed his children. He was a mean god. How appropriate for our description of time. Kairos, on the other hand, is time sort of outside of time. Have you ever engaged in something that you enjoyed so much and that was just so fun that you lost track of time? And that time became sacred? Madeline Langle writes this about Kairos, that it's time which breaks through Chronos with a shock of joy. That time we do not recognize while we are experiencing it, but only afterwards, because Kairos has nothing to do with chronological time. In Kairos, we are completely unself-conscious, and yet paradoxically, far more real than we can ever be when we are constantly checking our watches. Far more real. Sabbath time is Kairos time, where we just put away the watch. You know, that could be a great way to start your Sabbath practice, is to just put your watch in a drawer for the day. To just let life unfold as it does. To be playful. I told you my husband likes to sail. That's playful for him. It's fun. And Sabbath, I don't want you to get the wrong idea that Sabbath is about a day where you just, you know, it's all about you. But often, we can touch the heart of God. You know, he calls us to be children. He says to have the heart of a child. And I think sometimes play is a path to childlikeness. Now, in Jesus' culture, children were not as sort of revered as our culture. You know, we didn't think so high. They were just nothing. They were low socially. They were considered sort of, until they were able to work, they were pretty useless. They were a liability. And so Jesus' call to be childlike is a call to humility. And yet, I think playfulness is a path to humility. It's really hard to take yourself too seriously, you know, when you're giggling. You know, It's humbling to laugh. And yet I think, you know, it makes God's heart glad. For me, spending time with my kids, just going for a bike ride with them, or being out in my garden and just kind of puttering. I don't do any heavy lifting in my garden on Sabbath, but I do just kind of sit and enjoy it, maybe do some pruning, do some noticing. I see God at work in the garden, and so that's a place where I play. What's fun for you? Do you even know what would be fun? Do you ever just be silly with your kids? I think a lot of times, as the mom, I would find that my husband would get to do the fun playing with the kids, and I had to be the heavy. And so on Sundays, I just let that go, and I'd be silly with the kids. You know, I remember one time we were playing Scrabble on a Sunday, which is one of our favorite things to do, and the kids started making up these really goofy words, like that weren't words, you know. And I'm a lit major and a writer. It's not that fun to play Scrabble with me sometimes because I get a little intense, but I know you can't imagine that at all. But I just let them. I said, you know, I need to just let go of, like, you know, thinking this is tournament Scrabble, and just, so I just started making up silly words with them, you know, and then we'd be, oh, I challenge that, you know, and we started laughing, and we were just giggling. And I thought, this is so good to just play in a way that is fun, you know, just to play with your kids, or with your spouse. Do you do something fun with your spouse? Or is it, oh no, it's date night, gotta have a serious conversation, you know. Just do something fun, you know. If your husband's not on board with Sabbath, are there any guys in here? Okay, we can just talk. You're taping this, aren't you? Okay. There's nothing in the Bible that supports this, but there's nothing that contradicts it either. But the ancient rabbis used to tell people that a perfectly acceptable activity on Sabbath was to make love to your spouse. And so if you think, you know, you're going to go home and say, oh, I learned all about Sabbath, honey, we should do this, and you're expecting a little resistance, you could tell him that this is one of the activities that, you know, it's a way to play on Sabbath. I know of a gal, she's got 3 young kids, but Sabbath, part of their Sabbath is, you know, for them to meet up after the kids are in bed, and they look forward to it, you know? And so that's one way you could play. If you don't know how to play, that's a thought. Don't have your husband email me and ask for, you know, I'll deny I said it, so no. No, but really, I think sometimes we have so many responsibilities, and we get so tired, and it would be good for us to just laugh and have fun. And I think a day where we can let go of all the many tasks and just leave them aside for a little while and have some fun, that God thought up laughter in the first place.